up on Google. Yeah, says we're live. Okay, welcome to the Out There channel, live stream 225. Today we got a guest with us from MUFON, SoCal, Chief Investigator, and we're meant to be having Shelley come on to talk about her abduction experience and UFO sighting. But I'm not sure where she's got to, but we're kicking the intro and music. It will be with you in a minute. Here we go. Truth sounds like hate to those who hate the truth. Let's do the security fans out there. There's Earl Grey, he's coming up soon. The famous witch case. These are some clips from the shows that we've done. There's John talking about his bag of piss. There's Robert and his dog. He was meant to be joining us today too. Threw some 80 grey in there. Alright, now we're going down to Earl's mother's underground base. Here we go for people on the sides. Where is everybody? More people have dropped off. Good to be back. Okay, be civil on the side, no swearing, and let's have a bit of fun. Simple rules: no trolling, no self-promotion. Okay, so that stopped. Nope, I gotta pause it. So many buttons you gotta click here to get the right cameras and stuff. In case you slip up, just get rid of the echo. So, Earl,
well, there you go.
There we go.
You sounded like Oz, the great and powerful. You know, don't just ignore the man behind the curtain, right?
Yeah, I don't know what's happened.
I like your.
I'm not sure.
I like your underground base. Your underground base imagery that you have there. That's new. That was pretty cool.
No, that was on your mum's episode. That I did for your mum's episode. Okay. Remember, underground base.
I was probably talking and I wasn't looking at the visuals.
Oh, right. Well, that's why I put the best clips on the front intro. I know it's a wee bit long, but sometimes we need that length of time to troubleshoot some technical problems. Sometimes sure. Google does updates and then the screen goes crazy and have to reload it while it's still streaming. It's like the streaming and the control window are completely separate. So if you close down the admin panel, it still streams okay. So yeah, we've got this speech voice thing, and I was going to get it to introduce you because it makes a real munt off the MUFON. It doesn't read out properly, and it's hilarious.
Look at how that's so funny. Look at how you described me. I like Ale and the Beatles. Well, he's got me, folks. He, Paul knows
okay.
Me. How long have I been doing your show now? It's been a while. It's been some years.
Must be a couple of years now since we've met.
It's at least 3 years.
Anyway, have a listen to how it reads it out, though. It's quite hilarious. People said, "Oh, you should upgrade that." Now everybody keeps telling Stephen Hawking to upgrade his voice engine because it sounds better. But we sort of like this one because it makes quirky mistakes, and we just laugh out loud when it's reading out UFO cases. So I think it might be reading out too fast at the moment. Actually, let's see how it goes.
Earl Grey is the chief MUFON man, and like Sale and the Beatles.
The MUFON man. You like your muffins, mate.
That's true. The Muffin Man.
Let's read it out again.
I've been called worse.
It always makes me laugh every time it reads out.
Earl Grey is the chief MUFON man and likes Sale and the Beatles.
Likes L. It doesn't actually say L properly though, does it? What have you put?
No, it sounds like I like Sale and Beatles, but that's okay.
Where's it put the E? Subtitles. Goes crazy. Let's see.
So we're going up the Super Bowl, going up against the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll have anybody watching us. Well, we'll find out.
Well, everybody said they were keen, and there's no one here. Not even Robert, not even Shelley, who was meant to be on the show. But they'll come along. I'm hoping. When's the Super Bowl?
Now
end?
I know that Robert is not into American football, right?
Yeah, but it's 1:00 in the morning over there for him.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
He's not used to night shift work. I've done like 13 rotation shifts in my life for many years.
Yeah.
And I'm just used to shift work. So if I have to do a certain time, I get adjusted to that time. But Robert can't, obviously.
Earl Grey is the chief MUFON man and likes Sale and the Beatles.
Well, it sounded a wee bit better. I'm not sure how you spell L.
It's not going to say ale. You have it just
what if we spell
A-L-E?
We'll just fill in a wee bit of time here before we begin because it's funny.
That's going to be L.
L. It might sound right. It might sound right though. Let's see.
All right.
Earl Grey is the chief MUFON man and likes Sale and the Beatles.
But it's closer. I don't know how you misspell it to make it pronounce it right. But it said Beatles really all right there.
It said the Beatles really well. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, Beatles are like my comfort food music. I mean, when you deal with ufology and stuff all the time, you got to have some kind of an escape from it. You really do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some days where I'm talking to 10 different experiencers in one day, and after a while, it gets really strange. I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just it's just real nice to kind of cocoon and put on, say, Rubber Soul or some old Beatles album. And I recently rebought the Beatles anthology TV program that they did back in the 1990s. It came out on DVD. I used to have it on VCR, and I hadn't watched it in maybe 15 years. It had been a while.
Yeah.
And I kind of did a marathon watch of it last week, and it was really nice to watch. Plus, the DVD has extra features, which the VCR stuff didn't have. So
yeah. So you're over this side of Los Angeles, down here.
Let's see. Well, I'm out in the San Fernando Valley. I see New Mexico.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, you got to keep. Yeah, there you go. You're heading the right way.
That way.
I'm between Los Angeles and Ventura. There.
There. Which direction?
But
are we
you're
looking?
Close enough.
It hasn't got the name on the map. It's only got a couple of the big place names there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why it hasn't put other ones in by now.
I'm a little west of Burbank. If you look for Burbank Airport or something, that should show up.
Yeah, I'm not too sure why it's not putting the names in.
Yeah.
It's the map.
But I'm a Valley boy.
Yeah.
Nowadays, anyway. I used to be a Burbankian guy, from beautiful downtown Burbank.
Yeah.
But it's kind of costly to buy out there. So my wife and I bought a place out here. We had to move a little west of Burbank. So here we are.
So how many
San
cases
Fernando Valley.
Can you talk about today then? Oh, we've got 4 watching now, even though it hasn't updated yet.
Oh, good. There we go. Well, that's good.
Yeah, we're waiting for people to join us. Plus our guests.
We've had some pretty good cases lately. I mean, since I've been on your show, I've had some really good cases.
Triangle one first, was it, or what?
Yeah, I could tell you one that we had out in Bakersfield, California. It's a case that I recently closed as an unknown, and as for the listeners out there, Paul knows this. I'm very, very picky about what I will call a UFO. I kind of go by Dr. Jalen Hynek's thumb his rule of thumb, where 90 to 95% of the cases that you get in are usually objects that are man-made, or an afterburner of a jet. We get a lot of mylar balloons and drone sightings and things like that. So, but 90 to 90, like maybe 10 to 5% of the cases that you get in, you can't explain, and those are the ones that we're very, very interested in. Those are the ones that aren't prosaic, as far as we know, and whether they're man-made UFOs, well, we don't know that either. But we do get a lot of black triangle sightings out this way. Some of them are seen out by the Lockheed Skunk Works plant. Oftentimes they'll be seen maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, around that time, out in Palmdale, California. And I've had a few aerospace engineers that have gone on record and have one guy was working late, and he didn't work at Lockheed. He worked at another plant that was out there for another aerospace company, and he was kind of moonlighting and driving home after a long shift, and he saw this strange shadow that was blocking out the stars. So he pulls over and he gets out of the car and he sees a black triangle, just like you'd see in X-Files, that episode that was on last year or the year before, I guess, with the 3 little lights, one to a side, and perfectly silent, and the thing just flies right over him like nobody's business, as quiet as quiet could be. Like if a bat had flown over, it would have made more noise.
I thought they normally have hum, a lot of these triangle craft.
This didn't make a hum. This was just, it was absolutely silent.
Right.
And he watched it go about a mile down the road, and it was over there by plant, I think it's called Plant 42, I think is the main plant that Skunk Works uses. And he watched this thing light down behind the main wall. Now, he wasn't sure if it was lighting down at the Skunk Works plant or at the Boeing plant, because they're both next to each other. But he told me about this. He was scared to talk about it on the phone. I did Skype with him because I wanted to see his redacted badge, so I knew that he was who he was saying he was, and he was willing to do that. He just took a little piece of electrician's tape and put it over his name and number. But he did show me his badge, and he was who he said he was, and he really only wanted to talk the one time. He was scared to talk the one time that he did. He did have security clearances, but he said, well, I don't know what that thing was. And we talked maybe about an hour on the phone. And the end of the conversation, he said, would you happen to know how I could get on that project? I would really love to work on that thing. I had to tell him, well, no, I really don't know how. You would have had to have talked to my mom. She might have been able to help you. She's been gone for some years. But that was one really cool black triangle sighting that we had out here. And I had another one that was just a couple of months ago. Yeah. And this guy was a police officer, and he was who he said he was. Again, I told him I want to Skype and I want to see your badge and all that. And he showed me his badge. He didn't even redact anything. He just held it up to the camera and well, that's who he is. Okay. But he was taking his dogs out. It was about midnight, and this was in Bakersfield, California. And this gentleman lived near the Bakersfield airport, right at the end of the flight path where the airplanes land and take off from over there. So he took his dogs outside. They're going to go out and do their business and chase squirrels or whatever they usually do. And he's looking, something catches his eye over to the left, and he sees like 35, 40 feet away, hovering perfectly silent over his neighbor's house, the exact same thing that I just mentioned earlier, a black triangular craft. It was close enough to him where he could see like indentations on the side where it looked like there were like some kind of a ventilation system or something that was there.
Cooling system.
Yeah, no lights to speak of. He said that you could see the little recesses on each corner where, you know, it was probably a light or something, but there was nothing lit up about it. It was just hanging there at the end of the flight path of this airport. So he stood there and he watched this for about 3-4 minutes. The dogs did not react to it, which was interesting. I don't know if that's because it's a human craft, because you oftentimes, you know, in UFO sightings, animals will go nuts. But the dogs were just, you know, they were just tooling around like dogs do and digging and stuff. And so of course he decides he's going to go inside and go get his cell phone, try to get some photographs. So he ran indoors and he came back out, and of course it was no longer there. He didn't even get to see it take off. That was a recent report. I did give him an unknown. You know, he's a police officer. He is highly decorated. He's a veteran police officer.
Airport it was hovering over?
It's just called the Bakersfield Airport.
Okay.
And it wasn't over the airport proper. It was, he just happens to live in a cul-de-sac that's at the end of the flight path. I don't want to tell you more than that because I don't want to get him into any trouble, you know.
How big was it again? 20, 30 feet?
He said that it was a good like 40, 45 feet across. He said it was pretty big.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
I mean, you know, yeah, they have some of them that are the size of a football field. But and then there are smaller ones that are about the size of a fighter plane. This was a little bit larger than maybe like 2 fighter planes
and that's
across.
A recent one you said. So how many months?
This was a couple months ago.
Yeah. Okay.
It was about 2.5 months ago that I closed that case.
Right.
And you know, with this guy, he was willing to talk a few times, and I like to do that on my cases when it's just a single witness sighting. Just to see if they change anything, or because sometimes, you know, if somebody's making something up, then 9 times out of 10 they'll try to make their story better, or they'll get something wrong. And this guy was just matter of fact. Is just, you know, is like watching an old Dragnet episode, just the facts, man.
So we got a person on the chat here, Geddy Lee, saying he saw a triangle with lights in the corner and a red light in the middle. That sounds typical of...
Are you really Geddy Lee from Rush? Because I'd love to meet you sometime. That's the bass player from the band Rush.
Right, I don't think it would be that. Yeah, I'm not sure where Geddy Lee comes from.
Yeah, it's either Geddy Lee from Rush or somebody named himself. His screen name is the same as Geddy Lee.
We got Robert in the side chat. I told him to come on Jitsi if he wants to come and talk.
Oh, cool.
Directly, but what's he saying here?
Ooh, I like the SR-71
stay on
picture
patrol. So he's patrolling the side comments. What we're talking. Hey, mate. Shelley, I'm not sure where she's got to. See if you can find out where she's got to. But
I hope she comes on.
Yeah, she's got an hour to get here anyway.
So you had a picture that you were focusing on there a second ago of the SR-71. I got to see that thing land once. I got to see it fly and land over Edwards. What a beautiful plane that thing was. Oh my God. Yeah, the Blackbird. They had just decommissioned it.
And that one
there. Oh yeah.
Side view though.
We were at it was a shuttle landing / air show at Edwards. And apparently, if you're, you know, you know the right people and you have some good security clearances yourself, you know, there's stories out there of people seeing some really interesting things in the Hainer system that's over there. With me and my non-security clearances, I got to meet astronauts. Story Musgrave, very, very nice guy. And, you know, Story believes that UFOs are real. Just such a nice guy. Yeah. We met, it was my son and I. This is back like 1991, I think it was. It's a long time ago. He's a little kid back then, and now he's a, you know, ready to turn 40 on me, which is scary.
Yeah, because that means you're older too.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we got to see the shuttle land, and Chuck
Cool.
Yeager was playing wingman to the shuttle. He was the chase plane. So and they were, we were in the bleachers there at Edwards, and we got to see the SR-71 land. We got to see the F-117 land, which was crazy. I mean, that's Ben Rich's baby, right?
Plus,
and then Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier for us and landed and then signed autographs.
apparently we've got this
Almost
one
as
here
cool.
called the X-59 Quest airplane.
Ooh,
I don't know if they're doing
cool.
test flights of that one or not. It looks like something that
Probably.
Bob
Good old
Lazar would
Skunkworks.
say he saw. Right? Kind of looks like Thunderbirds, that, doesn't it?
It does, huh? That's pretty neat. I don't know if I've even seen that one. That's new, huh?
I think the front must have detached here, like on the Thunderbirds. It gets a certain altitude, and then this flies off with rocket engines.
I don't
It's
know.
very Thunderbird. I just wanted to get the ideas from Thunderbirds. They were cutting edge, I think.
Maybe, I don't know. Well, it looks sort of like the SST's nose section that would come down when they were landing. Mostly it did that.
I don't know if
they did that so the pilot could actually see the flight path below. So
right,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Shelley, you can jump into Jitsi. You know how to do it. But yeah, let Earl talk his cases. Meantime, I'm just trying to get a better picture of it here. It does look like it's detached here, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's just different. I don't know why it would be shaped like that, but that's pretty cool looking though.
It's based on.
See, we have some neat stuff. I mean, if we have any, if I'm of the opinion, I think that the black triangles are probably ours, or at least the ones that look like they came off of off of a conveyor belt. I mean, the ones that look like they were tooled in a factory where they all kind of look the same. The three lights, one to a corner, like the cop that put his report in where he saw air vents on the side and stuff, intake valves or whatever they were. I don't know that you need that if you're doing space travel. And I kind of, most of the UFOs that we think are not of human origin are just really strange. They shape shift and glow weird colors and stuff like that. But the black triangles all kind of look the same. They sort of do the same stuff. They seem to fly blunt end forward usually. The little triangular tip seems to be in the back when they're traveling.
Does it ever swing vertically upwards at high speed like the Mexican hat ones that we often hear about with the dome on top?
Yeah. I have not heard of them doing that. They're usually flying level.
That's what I mean. That it sounds more man-made, because all the alien sightings I hear with the classic saucer, they all shoot vertically upwards and blink out into the stars. And they're the most credible sightings. Of course, everybody's too busy watching it and not filming it. So no.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I can understand.
Well, when you see a UFO,
yeah.
I mean, I've seen two anomalous objects, and neither time did I bother to get a picture. I mean, after the fact, I'm like kicking myself and going, "Gee, some chief investigator I am." But thankfully,
we almost need like GoPros attached to our heads the whole time of the day. So
you do,
like a police cop dash cam.
We would have the Tic Tac video from the Nimitz affair back in 2004 if that had been a gun camera that was going constantly. I don't think that we would have it, because when you see something like that, it just, you're gobsmacked. It stops you in your tracks, and you not so much that you can't take your eyes off of it, and you're just trying to connect the neurons, like connecting the dots. It's just so outrageous and so strange, and I don't think that the things that I saw were man-made. They were just really weird, and
I've always got this personal opinion that it's not completely man-made. I think there's 50-50, Well, maybe more
Yeah.
man-made than there is alien ones. Somehow I think the man-made ones may be based on a crashed one. And what they've done is they've pulled out the engine of a crashed one and sort of put fitted it into their own body the best they can and use it that way. So they may not have they may have not solved the extremely high speeds that kill
Well,
humans.
I agree. I think that, well, that Townsend Brown was working on
Yep.
exotic lifting bodies way back in the 1940s, for goodness sakes.
And a lot of people ridiculed him, but he did actually do some interesting, and he did find out some really interesting stuff. Like you can charge capacitor and it will actually lose weight. So we knew something strange was going on with X-ray tubes with high voltages, that they were losing weight when highly charged. So you've watched that documentary I did on it, and there's actually research papers, and people are still measuring the weight loss per plate. One plate has sort of gains a wee bit of weight, but all the other plates lose weight, and overall it has a mass reduction, which is kind of interesting. In fact, which makes it lighter. So
yeah, it's electrostatic. Yeah. It's a high electrostatic charge.
Yeah, I think the Townsend Brown noticed when the X-ray machines gone on, these capacitors were rocketing, going crazy, like they wanted to escape the housing. So he started playing around with it, and so did Tesla, and Tesla and him were mucking around with the same sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and Tesla found the same stuff. He levitated apparently a rod off a mixture of fine metals, whatever that is. That's all we heard. That's all he wrote in his notebook or told his nephew or whatever it was. Drew a picture of it. But yeah, I reckon.
I was talking to a guy who is an aerospace engineer. He is a UFO guy, so you got to take that into account. But real interesting gentleman. He is with MUFON. And but we were talking a little bit about this stuff, and he was saying that he's gotten word that, and he couldn't talk too much about it, and I don't even really want to tell you his name because he was telling me this in confidence, but that the F-117 that we used, in the Iraq War and Desert Storm and all that it actually uses the electrostatic lifting capabilities, that it has that function, that's not all it works on, that it works on the jet principles as well, but that before it does a bombing run, that it can almost like stall and hover for a few seconds, long enough to drop its payload of bombs, and then it takes off again.
Right.
And according to this guy who is the guy knows his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him give a presentation, and there was this big, chalkboard that was full of equations that he's doing. It's like, okay, well, I don't know calculus, but this guy breathes calculus, and he knows his stuff. And so that could very, very, very well be a very good possibility. And I think that's probably what the TR-3Bs, the same principle that they use for flight.
So
it's probably that electrostatic.
How many black triangle sightings a month do you get for Southern California there?
Sometimes it's been kind of an abysmal month for me the last 2 months. The only good cases are the ones that I have, a couple that I got from the experiencer research team, where I'm talking to the person, I'm going, I think you should put in a regular, MUFON case for this. And both of them were mother and daughter long-term abduction cases. Both families had gone back to childhood, and now they're, the daughter is closer to my age, and the mom is a little, is, I guess she would have to be in her late 70s, probably, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And but they had both had a lifetime of visits and strange medical toolings around with them, and they, the mom in this case was kind of getting up there, and she got a hold of me first and told me that she wanted to put in a case, and then she starts mentioning that her daughter had gone through the same thing. So I said, well, could I talk to your daughter sometime? And she said, well, she's actually here. So I spoke with the daughter and I told her, well, why don't you both put in a case? I think you should put in separate cases. Interestingly enough, a couple of weeks later, the same thing happened again. I'm talking to this woman, and she's a lifelong experiencer, and she says, "Well, this has been happening to my daughter as well."
Yeah.
And so I've got like 4 cases that I'm working on right now.
But did it happen to her mother as well? Does it go? How far back does it go? Do they know?
To the mom, it went back to like her teenage years, and the daughter.
Not her mother then said anything about being abducted then.
Yeah, it was not a concept back when this started with her. It was before Bud Hopkins was writing his books and stuff.
Right.
I guess maybe the Hills were out there and all that with Betty and Barney Hill,
Yeah.
but
because what happens is if you don't mention it to your mother, the mother won't mention about her abduction to the kids, right? So
yes,
if you never
course.
bring it up, they won't bring up their past history. Say, oh, okay, it happened to me exactly the same way, and your grandmother, and so on and so on. It might go back generations, hundreds of years,
Yeah, I think so. Isn't that strange,
yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I think my mom had a strange alien connection. I mean, when she was a little girl, you're well aware of the story, Paul, but
yeah.
she had what I guess you would call like an electrically charged orb. It was about the size of a beach ball that went and pushed through their screened-in porch. This was in Iowa back in the 1930s. It would have been.
Yeah.
And it pushed through the screen. It hovered over her sister. They slept on the porch because it was so humid in Iowa where they were growing up. And my mom watched this thing hovering over her sister, and she was awake. She pushed herself up on her elbows, and she's watching this. It moves away from her sister and then goes and moves over towards my mom and is hovering in front of her. And then the thing it goes back to the the screened-in porch, the screen. It pushes through, and my mom said that as it pushed through, sparks were coming through it.
Really?
And yeah, sparks were flying from it. It sounded like a hive of bees, is what she said. And once it pushed through the screen, my mom got up and she starts following it. She ran after it into the middle of this cornfield. And she finally caught up with it. It stopped, and it was up about maybe 30 feet up in the air. And my mom said that she was standing under it, just looking at it, that it was just like this ball of sparklers.
Yeah.
And it hung there for a couple of minutes, and then she said it popped, it just disappeared, and she could smell ozone in the air.
That sounds very similar to what Shelley saw, but we'll get her on when she gets home. She's currently on the road somewhere. I don't know where they're gone.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if she gets home in time, you might actually get to hear a story. But
I'd love to. Well, I mean, my mom always called that ball lightning, but it was under intelligent control.
Yeah.
Ball lightning doesn't stand there and stare at you and push through the screened-in porch, and ball lightning lasts like 3-4 seconds max, and this was like a Foo Fighter or something, and so I think that my mom had contact back when she was a teenager. And of course, I had a weird experience too, when I started investigating the phenomena. I had never had any kind of experience like that until then, but
okay,
there you go, generational. Yeah.
So what other cases? So that's all the triangle cases. What else we got?
Those are the only the recent triangular cases. The most recent one, of course, was the police officer I was telling you about. And then I have the four experiencer cases that I had them all put in proper CMS cases for MUFON, which means it's like, when I work with the experiencer research team, it's a totally different thing than what I do when I'm investigating a UFO case. We work more like, we're listeners. We're there for experiencers. We're not there to judge people. And so if somebody doesn't want to, they don't feel like, being questioned and stuff, they just want to talk with somebody, talk about their experience, find out if there's a support group nearby, or if they want like a therapist or a hypnotherapist, then I can refer them to that. And usually it's almost like being an ET social worker. It's really, I love doing it, because I just get to hear people's stories. I don't have to sit there and prove them, and I can refer them to, for help dealing with that if that's what they need. But once in a while, I'll get a case like I was just telling you about, the mother and daughter cases, where they seemed just so well founded, just talking with them, and they were, each one is a multiple witness case, because both of them have seen the same stuff in the same house sometimes. So those, I had them. I said, we could do this, as I think that your cases would be beautiful cases to actually do a full-on investigation of, and then we can spend proper time doing that. And I'll have them keep a journal. I'll if they have a visit, I'll have them take their bedclothes or whatever they're wearing at the time and put those in a paper bag in the back of their closet, so that at a later date we can go over that with UV light and see if there's any signs, marks that are left, which usually there are in abduction cases or visitation. Have trace elements left on.
Get moving. Good night, everybody. It's been a fun show. We gotta watch out for the disc lights on that one. All the haters. Haters will be haters. How many times have we heard that? Truthers are haters, exposed liars out there, and they say they call us haters. Good night, Kiwi.